Hi, welcome back. This is Kim Young at Sassy Stitchery with Learning Stitches Sampler. We're using this book from Jeanette Douglas Designs to actually do just a banding with different specialty stitches in it. And we're working ourselves through all of the ones that she used on this sampler. And this is a great learning book. It's got some patterns in here for stitches that I was not as familiar with, and I thought you would enjoy doing it. So if you are watching this video as the first one of this series, I encourage you to hop back to the first video, the introduction, and then lesson 1. This is lesson 12. And there are 15. So we're getting toward the end, and it's been a fun journey. You can use banding to do it, or you can use a long linen strip. I know those are hard to find, but we have some online if you want to order them from us. You do have to be on linen to do it because these are counted thread stitches. So you're counting the threads in the linen. It just won't work on Aida. I love to stitch on Aida. I just finished up a piece on Aida, so I'm not knocking Aida, but these have to be done on linen, and you'll see why as you work through the series. And if you just finished up lesson 11, yay, congratulations. I hope that one went well for you, and I'm looking forward to reading your comments on the videos as to what you thought about the stitch in lesson 11. And so this is lesson 12. If you don't have the book, you will need the book to be able to work through these, and you can certainly get this book from us, or you can get it from your local needlework shop as well, or your chosen needlework shop is what I like to call them, since a lot of people are buying online. So the one that we're going to do today is the boxed Hungarian diamond, and Jeanette makes a few comments about it. She said she found it in one of her reference books, and that it was listed under still another Hungarian. So I think that was funny, and so did Jeanette. Now it's basically a diamond shape, and it's satin stitches. Again, it's just another version of a Hungarian. So it's long stitches, and it's a diamond shape, alternating in colors. And then Jeanette did something really pretty. She kind of truncated the top, and I did the bottom on one of my other pieces, borders of the stitches to kind of make them softer on the edges. So we're going to start, if you look at page 29, 30, and 31, I guess really, yeah, sorry. Let's start with page 30 and 31. 29 was lesson 11. So 30 and 31, block 12, boxed Hungarian diamonds. You'll need your pattern, and we're going to use the pattern that's on page 31. So we're going to start actually with the full diamond shape. We're going to count down enough to where we can do that full diamond shape, and then come back later after we've done 2 rows of diamonds and put on that a little bit truncated edge on the top. So I'm going to start with a away knot because I'm going to stitch over it, and I'm just going to put it here in the linen over here, and I'm using flower thread just like I have been before, and I'm leaving a 4 thread border and a 1 thread border on the edges. So 4 thread for my last design and 1 on the edges. So I'm going to count down to start. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's my margin. Now I'm going to look at my diamond stitches, the full stitch, and I see that the first one covers 2 threads. So I'm going to count down 2 threads so that I have the length of that first stitch. And I'm looking at the gray stitches that are numbered. So if you're on page 31, I'm looking at stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in that diamond format. So I've counted down the first 2 threads to get my starting point for the first little leg. Now, if you look at the diamond, and I want to make sure that I have enough room for the point of that diamond to have room on my piece and still keep my margin. So I'm going to start counting up. So the next stitch covers 1 additional thread up, the next one covers 1 more, and the next one covers 1 more. That's 3 more. Okay, so we're going to count down for those 3. 1, 2, 3. So far, we've counted down for our 4 thread margin, the 2 threads that our first stitch needs to cover, and then 1, 2, 3 more threads to get to the top of the first diamond. And that may sound backwards, but what I'm doing is backing into where I need to start by looking at what's between my starting point and where I want to end up. So basically, I'm counting what's between the starting point and where I want to finish. Now, if we keep looking at this, if we're going to put that row across the top, which we are, we need to count up for those stitches. So you've got one naked thread there. So let's come down there, and it's where those two black, darker gray, not black, but darker gray threads are intersecting over the diamonds. And then I want to count that truncated diamond stitch up. So I can see that I've already covered the first thread. When I counted down, I've got 1, 2, 3 more. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I think that this is my starting point. Let's just count it out again together. So let's count our border. Our margin. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we counted our starting stitch. 1, 2. And then we counted up the threads that series of diamonds covers that are above where our starting stitch ends. 1, 2, 3. Then I put in an empty thread, or one more thread for at the very apex of that first pointed diamond. There's an empty thread there, so that's 1. And then I counted up to my right the threads that are covered by the remaining stitches of that top row of truncated diamonds. So it's 1, 2, 3 more threads. 1, 2, 3. So I believe that's the right place. And that's how I would count it. Now, if you want to know the number, so you don't have to back your way into that, I don't know what your margin is. So whatever your margin is, I'm not going to include that in the count, because you may have a 5 thread, a 6 thread, whatever. So I'm going to count my margin out first. Now, I'm going to count the number of the threads that you will need to skip to get to the right point after you've counted out your margin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So count down your margin and then count down 9 more threads. And I think that's where you need to start. And I'm going to look at my pattern and check it that way. So, okay. So this is the starting line, but we don't want to start right here on the edge. If we look at our book, you can see that the first little stitch in the full diamond row, we need to count over threads. So we've got a 1 thread margin, which we've included, which actually is included on the pattern. Then we need to count over the next threads. 1, 2 threads. So basically, we need to come back down under here, stay in this same row, and count over 2 more threads. 1, 2. Which should put us 3 threads from the edge. 1, 2, 3, and it does. And so if you're looking at your pattern book, I skipped those extra 2 threads because I'm starting with 1. And you can see that there are 2 linen threads and then the margin thread. And so that's why I counted over the extra 2 threads. Okay, so we're ready for our first stitch, and the first one covers 2 threads. Now, once you get in the right spot, this is just crazy easy, especially relative to lesson 11. So, for me, as I mentioned, some of you may have found that a lot easier than I did. Now, I didn't really have to count this, because once I put this first thread over 2 threads, this first leg over 2 threads, I'm just expanding this diamond until I get to my longest leg, and then I'm decreasing it. And so I'm just coming out 1 on the bottom and 1 on the top. So I'm not even counting. You can count it if you want, and you can see how many threads are there in the book. But this is one of those places where you don't have to count. So, let's don't count. But make sure that you are expanding 1 thread on the bottom and 1 thread on the top. And you have to go 4 legs to get to your longest one, which is the one we just did. So now we're going to decrease a thread for each leg. So let's actually go back and count the last one. The last one covered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 threads. Okay? So this one, if it's coming in a thread on each side, is going to cover 6 threads. And then the next one is going to cover 4 threads. You get the idea here? And then the last one is going to cover 2 threads. So you either add 2 threads or subtract 2 threads. And that's your first little diamond. So how easy was that? Now, to do the next one, we're going to keep going across. But to do the next one, you want to skip 2 threads. You can see that in the pattern. So you skip over 2 threads, and then you just repeat that. So you cover 2 threads. You expand it by a thread on the top and the bottom, which gives you 4 threads. Expanded a thread, which gives you 6 threads. Isn't this easy? It was a nice rest spot. And then the longest leg covers 8 threads. And then you kind of bring it back down. So you're coming in a thread on each end. A thread on each end. A thread on each end to get you to 2. Then again, you skip 2 threads. And you just repeat this all the way across. Okay, so I'm not going to make you watch me do that. I'm going to do that. And then we'll be right back and we'll do the next diamond. Okay, so I got all the way across. I think you will too without any trouble. And we are going to pick up and start our next full diamond. So we're going to do both of the full diamonds going across. And then we'll come back and do the truncated one. And I'm going to do 2 rows of full diamonds. And then the truncated one on the top and the bottom, because I thought it was kind of pretty. You could keep going. And then the boxed part of this boxed Hungarian diamond is to put another thread that kind of runs through the intersections. And we'll do that as well. So, to start this next set of full diamonds, I'm going to put another away knot in here. And if you look at the pattern, you can see that it's compensated on the edge. And so this is one of those where I am going to start in the middle of that next stitch and then kind of work out just so that I get the placement correct. So the point of it needs to end between these two, and you need to have 2 threads left over. There are going to be 1 thread between everything. So the point will be right here at the base of these 2 threads. So if you see that, so just on this first stitch, I'm going to go down just so you can kind of see where it is. But you could count down and come up as well. Right? You see where that is? And it covers 8 threads. It's the longest stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's one way to make sure you get the placement right. Now, in actuality, you should be going up. So now that you've seen where it goes, let's take it out. And let's actually start it going up. So all we have to do is find that center spot between these 2 threads and then count down 8 threads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is your starting point. Okay? Now let's count back up 8 threads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And yep, that's exactly where you land. So that's your longest leg in this next diamond. Now, let's come out and do the left edge first. And I realize this is a little bit weird to do this. You only have to do it on the first one. So you come in a thread on each, so it covers 6. You come in a thread on each end on the next one, so that covers 4. Again, you don't really have to count after the first one. And then the next little leg covers 2. Now, you'll notice that you have a 1 thread intersection, empty space between these edges of these 2 diamonds, and that's what you want. I'm not going to bring mine all the way over here and compensate here. I kind of like the look of it the way it is. But you could do another partial over here. So if you wanted to fill in the full space, you would do another partial one over here. But I think it'll be really pretty without that. Okay, so now I'm going to, you can run it under on the back, or you can hop over like I did. I've been doing a lot of hopping on this video just to save time, flipping back and forth. But in reality, you'd want to turn your work over and run under. because the threads on the back of these long stitches is loose. And that brings up another point. You don't want to pull anything on the back that will distort the front. So when you run under, make sure that you're not yanking the thread, for lack of a better word, or being real aggressive with how you begin or end the thread so that you're pulling the threads on the front. I did have some trouble up here on this last stitch with this little thread that just went over one. Sometimes when I ended it, I would come back underneath and it would pull that thread under, and so you wouldn't see it, and so I'd have to go back over it again, which I did that on several of these. So I finally figured out, okay, when I'm going to end it here, I'm going to go forward to end my thread and to bury the thread on the back, rather than going under the threads and coming back the direction. And that's actually good advice for any time that you're beginning or ending thread. You want to end that thread carrying forward in the same direction you were going. And that helps you not to distort the stitches behind you and not to have that problem that I had up here where you lose a stitch. Also, it keeps you from kind of leaving a very obvious beginning and ending of the threads. So the trick is, when you're on the back and you're starting, you want to run under in the direction that you're going to be going. So let's say you're going from left to right. You would run your thread underneath on the back, starting from the left to the right to get to the point where you need to come up through the fabric. Now, when you get ready to end that thread, you want to end it going the same direction that you were just going. So if you were going left to right, you would want to take it, bury it in the thread going toward the right again. That's good technique. And that will keep you from being able to see starts and ends of threads as easily. And it also helps you to minimize distortion on your thread. And I realize that if you're doing your very first row of stitches, you won't have anything to run it under back there. But you can run it under and bring it up through the fabric and then stitch over it as you go forward. So just a tip there. Okay, so we're going to carry on. So remember, we always want a 1 thread margin between the diamonds, and you're just doing the same thing where you're kind of bringing it in a thread top and bottom, or taking it out a thread top and bottom depending on your direction. Now when you get to the end of your first diamond, again you're going to skip 2 threads just like you did on the top, and then the next stitch covers 2 threads. You drop down 1 thread, that one covers 4 threads. You drop down 1 thread, that one covers 6 threads. You drop down 1 thread, and that one covers 8 threads. And you see where it ended right there, right between the 2 short threads of the row above. And that one covered 8 threads. Okay, then to do the other side of the diamond, you come up a thread and you cover 6 threads. Up a thread, cover 4 threads. Up a thread, cover 2 threads. And then again, you skip 2 threads. So I think you get the gist of this. I'm going to show you one more, and you really don't have to count. You can just increase and decrease by 1 thread on your journey. So to me, this was a very relaxing stitch to do. Very contemplative. I actually cheated a little bit and did the fun part first. Which I will show you at the end. Fun for me, which means I changed up the colors and just did, something different. So see, I can talk to you, not even really having to count, just watching my placement. I am looking at where I'm going, but it's certainly an easy, fun little stitch. Okay, I'm going to finish this one out, and then we'll be back and we'll do the little truncated diamonds on the top and the bottom to give it a more rounded look. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, great. So I hope that went well for you. It was pretty straightforward and fun for me. And we're back, and I'm going to do a top row of a truncated diamond, and I'm probably going to come down and do another row of a full diamond in the red, maybe. and then a row of truncated after that on the bottom. You don't really have to do that truncated. It was just a pretty thing. You can just do full diamond rows. It's also really pretty. So, but I'm going to show you how to do this. It's fun. So I'm in the right spot. Again, I'm going to start in the place that's easiest to find the starting point for me, which is in the center. And I, skip 2 threads from the top of this, which the same as it did on the bottom puts me between these 2 short red legs. And this normally would cover 8 threads. You remember how this one covered 8 threads? But in the truncated version, she's just lopped off the last thread of this to make it soft on the top, so it covers 7 threads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, this is where the truth comes out about whether or not we did our margin right. So, let's have a count. For me, I had 4 threads. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it is. Yay! So, I hope yours works out well, too. If it doesn't, don't worry. It's just a practice piece. So, okay. So, now, the next 2 legs on this would be the same as they used to be, except this one now has a truncated top. So, that means the legs on either side of this end in the same spot, or the same row. So that one covers 6 threads, just like it always did. The next one covers 4 threads, so it drops down a thread on the end. And then the last one covers 2 threads. So, let's look at this so we can make sense of it. Just to make it easy on ourselves, we started in the center. And just for the first one, and then we'll keep going across. But the first one, instead of covering 8 threads and being a pointy diamond like these 2, it loses its last little thread coverage. And so that makes it soft on the top. The other ones still start where they're supposed to start. So you come up a thread, but you cover 6 threads, which is what it did down here. The next one comes in a thread and covers 4 threads. And the next one comes in a thread and covers 2 threads. And so that's how this row of truncated ones are going to go. The little point on the top is just dropped down to be level with the legs on either side of it. And so it has a soft, rounded edge on the top. So don't let that mess up your count. Just know that everything's the same except for that middle leg is 1 thread short in coverage. Okay? And you still don't really have to count once you get that pattern in your mind. But if it helps you, this leg covered 6. This leg covers 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the next leg covers 2. And you will also notice that you are still maintaining this 1 thread margin between your diamonds. Okay? So, now we can just carry on across the row. I'm going to skip 2 threads, so that's the same. You're skipping 2 threads here between these 2, just like you did here and here. And then you cover 2 threads, so it's really similar. Cover 4 threads, so you're out on either side. Cover 6 threads, so you're coming 1 thread out on either side, or top and bottom rather. And then this last one covers 7 threads instead of 8. So you start in the same spot, but you end level with the stitch you just did, the leg you just did. The same is true for the next one. It covers 6 threads, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The next one covers 4. The next one covers 2. And then you skip 2 threads. Right, so you're skipping around that point there. Cover 2, cover 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, just to be sure. You cover 6. And this one starts where it should, but it ends 1 thread short, so it covers 7. So it ends right beside the stitch you just did. The next one covers 6. Ends right beside that middle stitch since it was truncated 1 thread. The next one covers 4. So it's dropping down a thread, and the next one covers 2. So I'm going to carry that on across and finish that up, and then I will go ahead and do this other bottom row of diamonds. It's going to be a full diamond, and then I'll come back and we'll do this truncated stitch on the bottom together, just so you can see it. I'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. I hope you had fun with that, and didn't have any trouble with it, and you are ready for the next step. I finished out this little truncated row up here, and then I came back and I did another extra row down here of full diamonds in red, and now I'm going to do a little truncated section at the bottom, which you don't have to do. It would be just as pretty without it, I think, but it kind of is a, puts a finish on it. And you'll notice that I didn't compensate out at the edges. You can certainly do that if you were filling in like a whole area, like if you were doing a seat cover or a footstool or something like that, where you wanted to finish the whole area. You could do compensating stitches and make it a solid block. I did not do that. I just want it to be more decorative. So I'm going to add this little last row across here that has that little truncated top stitch, which will be the long stitch on the bottom coming down. It'll be on the bottom side this time. And then we will box in our diamonds, and this one will be done, and I'll show you the other fun little stitch that I did with it. Or actually, for me it was fun, but different colors and things like that. Okay, so I could have ran this under the back, but I didn't. I did a knot, an away knot. And so we have that there, and we're going to stitch over it. I'm going to do the same thing that I've been doing. I'm going to start in the center because it's easy for me to make sure I'm counted right. And remember, this long thread on this one is only 7 threads in coverage. It starts right between these 2 short legs, just like the others have. And I'm going to come down 7 threads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so even though the blunt part is on the bottom, I'm still going bottom to top because it's just good coverage, consistency. Okay, now the next one covers 6 threads. Remember, though, it's blunted on the bottom, so it actually starts in the same place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it should leave me a 1 thread margin with the diamond that's beside it, and it does. And the next one covers 4 threads, which means we come up a thread on each end. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the next one covers 2 threads. So it comes up a thread on each end, or in a thread on each end. And that's the first half of that. You can run underneath the back to get back to over here. This one starts in the same spot because that one's just a thread short. The long leg in the middle is just 1 thread short. And it covers 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's in the right spot. It maintains that 1 thread margin. The next one covers 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the next one covers 2. So instead of a diamond, it's kind of a teardrop when you look at it from this direction. Okay, then I'm going to skip 2 threads, and I'm going to work my way across just like I did on the top. So that first one covers 2. And you know you're correct if you've still got that 1 thread margin between everything. The next one covers 4. The next one covers 6. And that's your normal pattern that you've had throughout this whole thing. The next one's a little different. It just covers 7. And it starts in the same place as the last one because the blunted part is on the bottom. And you can count it or you can put it in, but let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it ends exactly where it should. The next one covers 6. It starts in the same row that the last one did. The next one comes in a thread on top and bottom, and it covers 4. The next one comes in a thread, top and bottom, and covers 2. And you still got that 1 thread margin between the diamonds, which is what you wanted. Skip 2 threads, cover 2. Come out a thread on each end, cover 4. Out a thread on each end and cover 6. Out a thread on each end. or not, right? Remember, because it's blunted. So you actually stop one thread short, so it only covers 7. So it starts where the last one ended, and it covers 7 threads to come up to that top point. So when you get in your rhythm, make sure you, if you're going to blunt that in, that you do it all the way across. And so then it's just, you know, it's just easy peasy, follow it across. So I'm going to finish this out, and then we'll come back and we'll box them in. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. I hope that went well for you. I did finish that out, and as you can see, it's just kind of a pretty little decorative end on the top and the bottom. Now I'm going to box in these diamonds, and I'm going to leave the tapered ones out. So I'm going to start, you know, right here in the middle, and this is what you're going to fill in your, you know, your little margin lines with between the diamonds. I'm using this dark blue color. I'm just using the same thread colors we've used throughout. I ran it under on the back, and it, they're long stitches, but they do, end in each hole. Now, you know, you could start and go up. I don't think it really matters on these, so I'm gonna just kind of weave my way through it here. You do want to make sure you start and end. You're not just pulling a long stitch. If you pull the long stitch all the way down, I think it would be kind of fragile. You could, you know, come up here and back stitch it. I don't know that there's a great, some of you who do a lot of black work might be able to point out a perfect pattern to get all these in without having to jump anywhere, but I'm just gonna go wherever I want. Have a little fun with it, which may not be the most productive, but now the other thing you could do is you could come back at the end and you could put a little bead in these intersections, which would be really pretty, or maybe a French knot, and maybe I'll do that because I did not do that on my other one as of yet, and I will show you that one too. So you can see I'm coming out to the edge here, but I am not going to encircle that. I'm going to use Jeanette's, what she did, and I'm just going to do actually, she kind of showed a compensating stitch there on the side. I think I'm going to come up for these guys, since they are full diamonds, I'm going to encapsulate them. And again, you know, you can do whatever you like here. I really enjoy working with this flower thread. This is flower thread from Volpel and Hollenbeck in Holland. I'm sorry, in Germany, which I don't have in stock anymore. But you know, Jenny Thompson also makes a good flower thread, and I'll be checking around to see if there's any others that we might be able to pick up. They're fun. Sulky's another great alternative. It's a pearl number 12. It's a little bit thinner than this flower thread. It's about the equivalent of a strand and a half of DMC, where the flower thread is, I really think it's the equivalent of a full 2 strands. And you can actually, you know, you'll see that I used floss on another portion of it, and it looks really good. It looks same coverage as this flower thread. This is a high count linen band. It's a 21 count, so that's why you're not getting perfect coverage. Now here, I don't want to cover up these blunt ends. I'm going to leave them hanging out there on their own. So I'm going to come back up here and pick up my diamond again. And this gives it a whole different look from what we had. So this is making it look kind of like a pillowed look, which I think is pretty cool. It's bringing to mind, like, again, you know, 17th century patterns, 1600s, 17th, 18th century, 1700s. Nice knot there. Might have to work on that one. Let's see what happens here. So if you ever get a knot, you know, I talked to you about the little slip knots in the last lesson. It does help if you put your needle into the middle of the knot and just kind of pull here and there to loosen it up. Not hard, so you can see where your threads are. And then, if you're lucky and you've been good, you might be able to get it out. What you don't want to do is pull a knot really super tight, because that does not help your situation. Is this what you signed up for, to watch me undo knots? Good experience. Okay, we got it. Yay, success. Okay. All right, so we're just going to continue on. And I'm just, you know, coming up right in the middle where that little hole was between these diamonds and laying these long stitches. Right now. So I'm going to finish this out, and then I'll be back and we'll talk about what's next. Okay, I want to show you a few errors that I've made so far, and I'm not going to take them out because this is my practice piece, and I'm going to do little French knots in the middle of these at the end, and it'll probably disguise it a little bit. The first one and the easiest one to see is here, and you can see that I started or ended that thread in with the diamond, and so I came back over the second time and started it in the middle. Like, I started in the same hole as the long thread, and that was wrong. And I saw it when I was coming back from another direction, but I didn't want to pull it out because, you know, it's a single thread through here. It would have pulled a bunch of stuff out. And it's a practice piece. So I went back over it, and I'm going to put a little French knot, or maybe even a bead right in here. You could put a bead here, and that would cover it up. On this one, I'll probably put a knot. I did it in a couple other places. So I want to show you where it should go. You see where, see what this open intersection looks like. And there's an open hole right there in the middle. Open hole right there in the middle. That's where it should go. The easiest place to make the error is over here on the edges where you don't have anything else. Because I made it here. So you see here's the little two-legged thread. The open hole would be right in the middle of that two-legged thread. But that's not where I began or ended that stitch. I began or ended it at the top of the long stitch, which, you know, it's not gonna, it just makes the diamond look a little bit shorter since it's on the end than these do. Once I put a little knot in there, it might not look so bad. But that's what I wanted to point out, especially when you're doing these ones on the edge. Make sure that you are using the hole that's kind of in the middle, but one thread over from the short two-thread leg. This one is correct. This one is correct. You know, these are all good because they're all pretty easy to see. Even this one was right. This one was right, but that one was wrong. And of course, the first one that I showed you, which now I'm having trouble seeing right here, that was wrong. So just wanted to show it to you, before I finished it up so that you could see where it should go, which is there, there, you know, here, here, before I finish it up. So just be careful when you're doing that to make sure that you are putting it in the right spot. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, back. So you can see that I finished up the diamonds, the boxes around the diamonds, and I started putting some French knots in. And this was one of the places here where the diamond wasn't perfect. And you can see that French knot fixes it. Now, I'm using crazy colors because I'm using colors you can see while we teach. You could make this a lot prettier by using colors that really complement instead of stand out. Although this is not too terrible. So, and this would be really pretty as a decorative stitch. Again, you know, it's bringing back to my mind, things from another era, which are just really pretty. But so Jeanette doesn't call for these French knots. You certainly don't have to do it. But I thought that, you know, it's a nice way to kind of finish off these, what look to me like cushions. So let me show you the French knot thing again. And I know we've done it together before, and I know some of you still refuse to do it. And some of you are like, huh, well, that makes sense. So there's two ways to do a French knot that both work well. If you're on a higher count linen or fabric, you do it a little easier than what I'm going to do it, or differently, I guess. So normally I only ever do 2 wraps around my needle. And so I pull it up just like that. I do 2 wraps. This is where it's different. For this really kind of low count linen, and because this thread's pretty bulky, I'm going to go back into the same exact hole that I came out of. And I'm not going to pull the knot really hard, and it's just going to lay on top. That's what I did with these 4 here. If I were on a finer count linen, and by finer I mean higher count, so like a 36 or a 40, even a 32, I would go back in 1 thread over from where I came out. And that would definitely set the knot, and it won't pull through. On a higher count linen, you can't see that it's off center. On this low count linen, you would immediately see that the knot was off center. So that's why I'm not doing that. But I am being really careful to make them correctly and to seat them, but not to pull them through the linen. And that's kind of the biggest trick to a French knot, is to be gentle. You know, you just, like you're petting your favorite little animal, you know, just be really gentle with it. So I come up through the linen right there where those intersections are. It's really kind of a two-handed thing. I'm right-handed, so if you're left-handed, it'll be opposite. You basically would do a mirror image for me. With my right hand, I hold the needle. With my left hand, I wrap the thread around it twice. Then I put the needle back, in this case, into the same hole. It's hard to do in front of the camera. And I'm holding that thread over to the left. You see, I'm holding it taut, but I'm not pulling it tight. There's no slack in that, as you can see. Slack is what gets you in trouble. So, but you can see it's not super tight. So taut with no slack, but not tight. And I hold that over there with that hand. I put this one behind it, and I pull it gently back through, because you've got to get the eye of the needle through. Excuse me, it's dry. Without kind of losing your knot. So you just gently pull that needle through. You hold that other thread tight or taut as you pull it through, and you just don't let it go until you have really gotten it almost there. Now this is where it can go wrong, so you just are really gentle as you pull it back through, and then you seat it. You see, I tugged it just a little bit, but not tight enough to pull it through. If I wanted to, I could pull it through. I don't want to. Okay, so let's do it again. Let's come back up over here in this one. And if you're doing this in hand, it's actually goes pretty quick, and it's actually easier, but it does take 2 hands. So you bring your needle through, and I make sure that it's all the way through. I pull this over, and I take my dominant hand, I hold the needle, and I wrap the thread around it twice. And I'm kind of holding it on there with my index finger. I'm sliding it back on the needle a little bit so that I have room to get the needle back through the fabric. I put it back in the same hole. Before I do anything else, I pull this thread kind of taut, and I let it slide to the bottom of the needle like that. And I keep it taut as I pull the needle through the back. I'm very gentle as I'm coming through the eye, because if you pull it too hard right there, you can have a problem with it. You see, it goes through perfectly. Every time. Almost every time. Not every time. Probably just jinxed myself. Let's do it again. I actually love doing French knots because it's fun. Now, I will tell you a trick. I wax this thread before I'm using it, not because I'm doing the French knots, but because my climate, even though it's raining outside, it's pretty, the air feels dry to me. And so my threads go easier when they're not feeling, dry. They're cotton, they're natural fiber. So, and I didn't think about it, but I think it actually makes this process go better. So, did you see what I did there? Again, I've got the needle in my dominant hand. I put the needle under the thread, and I wrap the needle twice with my non-dominant hand. I kind of slide it back. I'm not pulling it super tight. I've got to get enough room to get the needle back to the fabric. I put it back in its spot. Now, before I actually do anything else, I kind of pull this till it tightens up and kind of slides to the end. And then I get my hand back behind it. I'm keeping this one taut. and I gently pull the eye through, and then I'm in a good spot, and I just pull this thread back through. Okay? We'll do it again without me talking. So if you're having trouble getting your eye through, you're probably holding your thread too tight, which I was at that point, and I had to give it a little bit of breathing room there to get the eye through without pulling it. So that's how you do it. I'm going to go through and put the French knots through the rest of those little intersections. And this one is done. And remember, this is not about the color threads I used. I don't think this is very... the color is very attractive to me, but these colors let you see what I'm doing. So just remember that. Yours will be much more beautiful when you use complementing colors. Okay, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and I want to show you what I did over here. I used floss, and it's some Gentle Arts over-dyed floss. I used 2 strands, and I did all the diamonds, and I did the truncated diamond along the top and along the bottom. Now here I haven't put the border through, and I wanted to show it to you because I thought it was really pretty. And I decided to put some metallic in here because, well, we haven't done much of that, and I wanted to show you a little bit on how to use metallic. So I looked through a couple of boxes that I had, and they were honestly donated to me. I have some chronic metallic, but not as much as this person had that gave them all to me. So I looked through her box and I pulled one out. Now I probably could use a little bit bigger one, but I just want just a touch of shimmer here. So this is a number 8 metallic braid. And this is what chronic looks like. It comes on this spool. And this one is 021, not that that matters. Oh, it is a number 4. So it's a number 4 metallic braid. And I cut off a pretty small piece. So I wanted to talk to you about it because there are some things to think about when you use metallics. And one of them is how big of a piece to use. And you want to keep a pretty short strand, and this one is. You also want to make sure that you don't cut it with your good scissors. So these are Dovos. I did not cut this metallic braid with these scissors. Use a pair of scissors that aren't very expensive, that are marked for metallics. I didn't have any in front of me, so I used these paper scissors. But I do have a small pair that were like $7 that I used to cut metallics, because the metallic will dull your blade. So never use a good pair of scissors. Cut a short strand, like 18 inches or so, maybe even shorter, maybe 12. And the next thing you want to do is you want to condition the thread. And this is really important. And I think this is a step that a lot of people don't know about. And one of the reasons that they get frustrated. So this is a beeswax that my nephew Tucker makes for the shop. He keeps bees, and it's a really pure beeswax. It's from the bees here where we live out in the country. We actually live in a little town that borders Asheville called Lester. And this was one of the beeswaxes that he made for the shop. And I use it. You can see I've used it already some. And I use it. I had to take it out and smell it because they smell so good. I always use it for metallics or some other thread conditioner. Now, if you don't have a really pure beeswax, and we have these for sale, they're actually really inexpensive. I want to say it's like $12, which is, for a piece this big, is excellent. You know, and Tucker, it's a byproduct of what he does with the bees to actually make money, which is, you know, the honey. And so he was happy to make these for us. And almost all of the money goes back to Tucker. So if you are interested in that, go take a look at these on our website. Now, so I pulled it through there a few times, and then I rub my finger back over it to get any excess off. And it feels fine. Now, if you don't have that, or if you have some old Thread Heaven or Thread Magic, you can use that as well. And you would just lay this in here and pull it through. Since I've already done it with the beeswax, I'm not going to use that. There's really only one more thing to remember, and that's you need to lock the thread over in the eye of your needle. And there's a couple ways to do it. You can like thread it with the loop and then come back through it, or you can just tie a knot in it. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it this way because I'm not super good at this. I usually just thread the needle and then tie a knot in it because then I can control the length of the tail. You want a short little 2-inch stub tail because you're not going to use it to stitch. It's to secure the needle. So I have threaded the needle and I've pulled that through, and I'm going to find my, like 2-inch tail, and then I'm actually going to tie a knot. Now, if you're using a really fine linen of some sort or something like that, you'll have to tie a little knot, or you may not be able to get that knot through, whatever you're doing, or like a bead. I don't think you would attach beads with metallic, but I definitely don't think you could get that knot through it, even on a beading needle. But you want to lock that into your needle so that this doesn't slide through the needle, because that's the other issue. The metallic needs to be a shorter length than what you usually stitch with. Make sure you cut it with a pair of not your best scissors. B, you want to condition it always with either a natural beeswax or really clean, clear beeswax. And by that, I mean, you don't have a lot of grit or anything like that in it. A pure beeswax, one that you trust is 100% beeswax, or a thread conditioner. And C, you need to lock it into the eye of the needle so that you're not running your metallic through that eye over and over like you do when you normally stitch, because that causes the thread to fray as well. So, and make sure you use the right size needle too. Okay, so now we're ready, and I'm not going to do, I guess I'll do an away knot. I'll do a little away knot on the top, and then I'm just going to go back through and, outline all these little diamonds like I did on the other one. The reason I didn't do this before on this little play section is because I kind of liked it without it, and I wasn't sure I was going to do it. And then when I did it with you today, I thought, wow, that's kind of cool looking. So I decided I would go back and do it. But I had to find the right metallic for it. I didn't want to do it with just a floss. That's not to say you have to use metallic. You can use anything you want. Okay, so you saw me do this before, so you may not want to watch this whole thing, but I'm just going to put, an away knot in here, and I'm going to come up here. Again, I'm going to make sure I start in the little open spot between the stubby legs that just cover 2 threads, and go back into one of those. You don't want to make this a long thread. You want to make sure that you sink it into the fabric. Now I might go back at the end of this and put French knots in this one too, just because I like them, or beads. I could do beads as well. I'm going to suggest that you don't do an away knot. I think you need to bury that on the back. And I'm going to have to, when I get to it, I'm going to have to clip it off and bury it in the back, just because you don't have enough thread coverage from what we're doing here to cover that away knot. I kind of did that so I didn't have to flip this over and make you guys wait. But it really needs to be buried underneath and woven in and out a few times. And make sure you don't pull any of your fibers on the front when you do that. Okay, so you don't have to watch me do this. I'm going to go off and do this and get rid of that knot. And then I'll come back and show you the end, and we'll decide whether or not we want to put something else on it. Okay, be right back. Okay, I wanted to come back and show you that I'm going to have to get another piece of thread. I didn't get a lot done, and the knot's still there, but that's okay, because I would much rather use a short piece and rethread than have this metallic fray or break. And I use metallics whenever I want, which is, whenever I want. I don't shy away from them, and I use them a lot in needlepoint. And I don't have that problem with them fraying or breaking, because I do those things I told you about. I make sure that I condition the thread first, and then I use a short piece and I lock it into the needle eye so that it's not pulling through the eye. Because really, I think coming through the eye of the needle and, you know, not having it conditioned are what caused people to be so frustrated with it. So I hope you'll give it a chance. I wanted to point out something else here, is that I did compensating on the edges of this one. So I actually took it out a little further than the one that we did with the practice piece, and I did some compensation there. And I really like the way that looks. And so I have to decide, do I want to bring this this metallic out kind of to the edge like that or not? And I probably won't. I don't know, because I don't really have the right place to end it there. I think it's going to make the diamond look weird since it's not a full diamond. So I'm probably not going to take it all the way out there. I'll probably keep it in here. But I just wanted to share that with you because I thought that was kind of neat too. So I'm going to rethread, take care of that knot, and finish this up, and I will be right back. And please come back and watch the rest of this because I have something I want to show you that you might find interesting. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, so there are our two different uses of that boxed Hungarian diamond stitch. This is the one that we did together where we used flower thread and then we put some French knots in there and we did the box end of it. This one is the one I did with floss, variegated floss, and then I just put just a little glimmer in there with a chronic. I do want to mention that I used both the beeswax and the thread conditioner from Thread Magic. And the chronic, I use the beeswax for floss and for silks when I need it. Of course, flower thread, anything like that. I did find that for the metallics, because they are more fragile, that they came through the thread conditioner easier. And so you can see, you can take this thread conditioner out and squish it around and put it back in. And so the way this little container is made, and this one is called Thread Magic, but if you have an old Thread Heaven, it's great too, is you just lay it down and you pull it through there. And this is soft and this is hard, and that was the difference. This is great for stronger threads like silk and cotton. The metallics, I felt like, were a little bit more manageable pulling it through this. I didn't feel like they were gonna, you know, I didn't have to pull as hard. So I think this, something like this, a thread conditioner, a manufactured thread conditioner, would be great for metallics. You can use beeswax, you know, just understand that you can't yank it hard. You have to kind of pull it through there. And I did do 2 strands on the beeswax and 1 strand on the conditioner. I did use 3 strands. And does that frustrate me for this little area? Because I had to jump around on the back and waste a lot of thread on the back to move around. But it's beautiful. It did not fray on me, and the experience was perfect. And the metallic gives just that little bit of glimmer to it, and I just love it. I'm just super happy with it. This next block is our next one. So I do want to talk to you a little bit about an application, a possible application. I saw this when I was upstairs, and this is just one of those boxes that I got from the big box shop. It's a book. Sorry, my camera's really close to the bottom, so I don't have a lot of room, but it's just one of those fake books that I bought at, I don't know, probably Hobby Lobby, and it opens up like this. And I thought, wow, you know, this one I loved because it looks really ancient. And I thought, wow, with the right colors, would this not be just a beautiful application in here? Any of these stitches, but particularly, you know, this one that we did, or even this one, I think would just be gorgeous to take a piece of linen and do that pattern on it and wrap, you know, put it on the top. Or if you wanted to, you know, stitch something for the top, you could, other than just the pattern, but the pattern by itself, and then, you know, laced onto a backing board that you then attach to the top, or even, or one pattern on top and one pattern around the inside edge, would make this so beautiful. I mean, just gorgeous. So I just wanted to give you an idea for an application of what you can do with this. I mean, I just think that all of these patterns are just so beautiful. This one's probably one of my favorites. I really enjoyed playing with you in the beginning with all of these different eyelet formations. And you see this box here, and here it is with a bead. I mean, we've just had a great time with this. And so I just want to thank you for playing along with us. We've got 2 more lessons after this. We're almost done. And thank Jeanette for putting the book together. We do have a little freebie that we're going to give to you, and I'll put that out there for download. I'll probably put it out with this lesson at the end of this lesson. It's a freebie from Jeanette for a needle book, and you will have learned almost all the stitches to be able to make that needle book. So I look forward to hearing your feedback and to seeing your little needle book. And I will see you again for lesson number 14. So have a great time playing with this, and I'll see you back soon. Thanks so much. Bye.